Hi, I'm Addie, and if you've been to Girls Rock Milwaukee Camp before, you might already know me in one of the many roles I fill at camp, but if not, it's nice to meet you, and I'm glad you're here. So this workshop is called What's in a Song? And we're gonna talk about the ideas of what is a song in kind of abstract terms, and then we're gonna go into more concrete definitions. To me, a song is the most raw expression of my feelings. I primarily write music as a form of expression more than anything else. I don't really draw too much or paint or anything like that, so songs are my way of expressing my feelings to the world, unfiltered and uncensored. I'm going to talk about how I write songs, and this obviously isn't how you need to write a song, but it might be helpful for you to hear how someone else does it. I'm looking at my notes here, and what I want to talk about first is I write songs about things that I'm really passionate about. Whatever gets me fired up is what I write a song about. That's usually one of two main things, things I'm excited or happy about, and most often that's food. And the other thing is working through trauma or processing negative experiences. That really is like the core of my songwriting. And I like that I can write songs that sound vastly different from the subject matter that they're tackling. And it also is a way for me to kind of like take control and ownership of negative experiences in life and send it out into the world and let it go and let other people relate to the experience if they do. Some of the things I write about are catcalling and harassment, especially when I used to ride the bus a lot. That was a thing. Concern trolling on the internet and in real life. Issues I had at school and at jobs, and that is still a hot topic for me to this very day, and relationship issues. Those are kind of like my biggest topics. That's what gets me fired up. I also wanted to touch on like politics and social justice issues. I feel like for me, when I'm writing about personal stuff, those types of ideas get wrapped up in it too. So then the song I might be writing angrily about an ex or a friend who I feel mistreated by kind of gets turned into a bigger issue. I generally have not written like too many songs that are like super clearly political, but that's definitely a great topic that gets pretty much everybody fired up and is a great way to get your message across and to share your feelings. Those are kind of like how I write my lyrics, but also like I get the ideas for like the feelings of my music too from those thoughts. Like I don't necessarily start writing with lyrics. Sometimes I start with music. It kind of depends on where the inspiration is coming from and what I'm feeling, and I just kind of go with it. And so for writing music, I like to use this analogy that my brain is kind of like a garden that sprouts music instead of flowers or plants or vegetables. I just hear music in my head a lot of the time, and that's what gets turned into songs. And so with the garden analogy, you can water your brain with playing your instrument, learning new scales or techniques if you're a drummer, trying to learn how to play other songs that you like, and listening to music, both music you already know and love and new music and life experiences. Those are all kind of like the rain and the water and the fertilizer of like how I come up with music. And that's not really something that can be like taught per se, but hopefully that gives you some perspective on, you know, how you can come up with music. You just kind of start to feel it after a while. And so when I hear music in my head that I like, I try to either write it down, sing it in a voice memo, or type some notes about it if I don't have a pen and paper handy. So however I can write my inspiration down as quickly as possible, whether I don't know the notes and I'm just kind of singing it, whether I'm kind of like shouting a rhythm, or just different cues like a natural note and a sharp note, and a natural note and a flat note. If you are familiar enough with music to know those terms, that's one way to think about it. But however you think about music is how you should write it down for yourself as soon as you get the inspiration, because I've had so many songs I've lost from not writing it down or recording it in some form right away. And so for me, the best thing about songwriting is how it becomes something bigger than you in the end. And I can get kind of emotional talking about this sometimes, but for me, songwriting is so personal and so important because sharing it with my bandmates, playing it with other people, that's the first step of it growing. And so when I write a song, it's kind of like this little bubble or cloud that's in my head. And then when I teach it to my bandmates, that's the first time that it leaves my head. And then it's kind of like a shared bubble between all four of us. And as they add new things to the song, it kind of changes color, it changes the shape, it changes the size, and I feel like it's this bubble that lives between the four of us for a while. And then when we finally go to perform it in front of other people or record it and share it, then it's loose and it's free in the world, and other people will hear it, and to them the bubble will be a different color or a different shape, or maybe even it won't even be a bubble, it'll be something else. It'll be a balloon, or I'm trying to think of floaty things. But how it becomes something different to the listener, and it became something different to my bandmates from what I initially heard in my head, that's like huge to me. Like, that feels great to create something, have it change a little bit with the other musicians in my band, and then have anyone who hears it have a similar or different experience with it. That's like, to me, what a song is, like what songwriting is. Like, everyone hears something a little different. Everyone feels something a little different when they hear the same song. And I just love that, just the whole idea that it's this changing, malleable thing that makes other people have feelings that started from feelings inside you. And so that's why I love songwriting so much, and it's so important to me. Hopefully that helped, and that can be of some use to you. And now we're going to talk about the more concrete aspects of what's in a song. So we're going to talk about the definitions of the parts of a song and arrangements of a song. So I'm looking at a little zine I made a bunch of years ago for Girls Rock Camp called How to Write a Song, and we will have this uploaded on the Google Classroom for you to take a look at. It's a pretty lo-fi paper zine, but you will be able to see what I'm referencing here. So I'm looking at the page that says Song Structure. The structure is the invisible framework of your song, and it's a good way to put your song together, and it can help you write your song as well if you break it into smaller parts rather than being this whole giant thing, oh, I have to write a whole song. If you break a song, like any other kind of task or piece of work that you have to do, into pieces, it makes it a little bit easier. The first part I'm going to talk about is an intro. That word is short for introduction, as you probably already know. So it's a way to start a song. It can be the same part as another part in your song, which is something I do quite frequently, like play a little bit of the verse or chorus at the beginning with no singing over it. And it could also be a totally different part of your song, depending on how you want to start it. For example, the song Tempo by Lizzo starts out with this wicked guitar riff, and then the rest of the song doesn't really have any guitar. So that's one thing to think about. So for another example of an intro, here are going to be some examples from a song I wrote called Winter Blues. And so here you go for the intro. And next we're going to talk about the verse. The verse, in my mind, I think of it as kind of like the storytelling part of a song. It's kind of a setup for the chorus in a way, and generally in the structure, a verse alternates between the chorus and other parts of the song. A lot of times verses have different lyrics every time that it comes around in a song, but it doesn't have to. One way to think about this is like a verse could be talking about quote unquote how things are, whereas your chorus talks about quote unquote how I wish things were. So that's like one analogy for a relationship between the verse and the chorus, but it doesn't have to. Here's an example of a verse. A chorus is generally the main idea part of the song, and it drives home your meaning, what the song's about, whatever your message is. It alternates between the verses. A lot of times, if you hear a snippet of a song used in a video or on TV, it's a lot of times from the chorus because that's the most recognizable part. A lot of times choruses have yeah, yeah, yeahs or whoa-ohs, different kind of like agreeable affirmations in them. And it can also just be more serious and just have a really straightforward message. And so an example for the chorus would be like how I wish things were. The interplay between a verse and a chorus, it can take on different contexts, but that's one way to think about it. Here's an example of a chorus. Another part of a song is called a bridge. And so like a bridge in real life, it connects maybe the beginning part of your song to the end part of your song. I like to think of it as a change of pace. It breaks the song up and keeps it from being very repetitive, although there's nothing wrong with it being repetitive. It's all about like what you like when you're hearing it. A lot of times, pretty much a bridge is just played once in the song where it lands, and it can have singing, it doesn't have to have singing. Here's an example of a bridge. And then another thing that your song can have are solos. So if you want to feature any instrument at all, that's a solo basically, including the vocalist. A lot of girls rock camp songs end up having every single band member play a solo, which is really cool and fun. Or you don't have to have a solo at all. You could also do kind of a part where you're all chanting the same thing or singing the chorus or another part and clapping and not playing any instruments. You can really kind of treat a solo just kind of like a bridge as like an add-on special bonus. It's not the meat and potatoes of a song. It's a special distinguishing part. And then the last part of a song, which is at the end of a song, is either called an outro, kind of like the opposite of intro, or a coda is the more musical term. It's the last part of a song. And again, it could be a repeated part of the song, or it could be a totally different part of the song where you write new music for it. And so here is an example of a coda. When we're talking about song structure, you don't have to use the terms verse, chorus, bridge, solo. Something that I have started doing, this is my songwriting notebook. This is for a song called Live, Laugh, Love, which is a tongue-in-cheek take on the ubiquitous signs and artwork that we've all seen. And so I started using the Roman numerals 1, 2, and 3. This is kind of something my brain did. I didn't really put too much thought into what am I going to call this part. It just kind of happened and I went along with it. You could, use A, B, C. You could call it literally whatever you want to distinguish the different parts. This is how I write my music out for myself and for my bandmates. The F sharp is the name of the chord, and so when it's between these two lines here, it is 4 beats. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 3, 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. And how I have B flat with a slash over an A, that means the B flat chord is 2 beats and the A is 2 beats. And then here I write that this is going to repeat 4 times. And so that's just kind of like my musical notation. And again, not something that anyone has to do, but just an idea. You want to make sure that when you're communicating your music and songwriting to your bandmates, that you do it in a way that everyone understands. Some people who play guitar and bass understand it more as like the numbers on the fret. So that's another way to explain it. But if everyone knows what the notes are, this is a good way to do it. My structure down here, I just wrote top to bottom. This is the beginning, this is the end, the order. And so I'm just playing this song, part 1, 2, 1, 2, half of 1, which means that this would only repeat twice instead of 4 times. And then part 3, which technically we could call it a bridge, and then another half of 1, and then we're gonna play part 2 twice. And that's my coda, that's my ending. What I did was I wrote these parts, and then I worked it out with my bandmates. How many times should we play this? Repeating part 1 4 times, it gets kind of long, and it's kind of boring, and it's kind of repetitive, and I was getting kind of bored, like playing my own riff over and over again. So that's why we decided to cut it in half towards the end of the song. We decided to double the length of the second part because we thought it sounded cool. Even after you write the different parts of your song, whether you call them verses and choruses or whatever, you can play around with how many times they repeat. You can play around with how long they are. You can cut them short. You can extend them. And then you can always add something later if you want to. I have a hard time deciding how I want songs to begin and end, so those are the things I change the most when I'm working with my bandmates. This is one way to approach writing a song.